We go back the next week and they said, the baby's not growing, there's no heartbeat. You'll probably be miscarrying soon. Our names are Kayla and Joey McLaughlin. Hear our story.
So Kayla and I met in high school. We're high school sweethearts. My senior year, I transferred schools to a small private Christian school to play basketball, and it's a school that she'd gone to her whole life. Laid eyes on her and never took my eyes off her ever since. Literally.
Okay. Yes, well, our school was very small, so we found out through the grapevine over the summer that there was a new guy coming because there were so few of them. And so all the girls were very excited. I wasn't really looking for a relationship at the time, but I saw him and it's one of those moments where you kind of just knew something was different, and we started dating and we've been together ever since.
And for a large period of that time, we did a long distance relationship. So communication's been a big thing for us from the beginning of our relationship. And I'm just a question asker. I ask people questions all the time. So I feel like we talked about every little detail in our life and what we would want it to be and what our dream for our life would be, from how many kids we wanted to have, what their genders would be, what their names would be, where we wanted to live. And so the plan was to wait about 4 to 5 years. I guess we waited 4 years till we started trying to have our first kid, Raleigh Ray. And I think we started trying in January and found out we were pregnant in January.
Yeah, pretty much.
And first pregnancy, I mean, I think the whole process was pretty easy, right?
It was very easy, surprisingly easy. Then after that, we had planned on waiting about a year to get pregnant again, and surprisingly got pregnant 6 months later. So just right then, like, our plans got stopped. We were like, wait, this was not in the plans, this is not what we had planned, but, you know, just believing like, okay, that's fine. Like, we had planned on having a lot of kids. It's happening a lot faster than we thought it was going to. And so, you know, it took a little bit of time for me to come around, but then I was very excited, and, you know, we go to our first appointments, trying to figure out, you know, about how far along we are. We make it to the first appointment, they measure the baby, can't find a heartbeat, say, you know, probably just too early, come back in 2 weeks, still can't find a heartbeat. They said, again, like, it could just be that you came in way too early the first time and it's still a little too early. We're gonna plan it again for a week from today. We go back the next week and they said, the baby's not growing, there's no heartbeat. You'll probably be miscarrying soon. So we were just praying for a miracle at that point, just praying that Jesus would just put a heartbeat in that baby's chest. And it was actually later that day. We'd actually planned on going on a retreat for Joey's job with some students. I was gonna meet him down there the next day, and so I'm staying at my mom's house. And I end up miscarrying that day. Doctors couldn't explain it. You know, they just said so many women experience this, especially early on. It's nothing that you did, it's not your fault. But there's just a part of you as a woman who just feels like, well, it was just me. Like, I was the one providing life for this baby, and I couldn't do that. At that moment, you know, I said, we had not planned on starting to try for another until our first was about a year. But at that moment, we had lost a baby, and we're like, well, we don't know what's gonna happen at this point, so we're gonna keep trying. So we continued to try to get pregnant again from that moment. Crazy thing about this one was we were getting pregnant in the month that the first one would have been due. The first miscarried child would have been due. So it was this redemptive thing in my mind. It was, wow, like, February was gonna be this time of celebration for us, having our second child. And then for so long not being able to get pregnant again, thought February was gonna be so hard for me because I wasn't going to be able to celebrate that birth. But we end up finding out we're pregnant again. So we ended up having this exciting February. We were excited that we were gonna be able to have a baby. Wasn't the original plan, but we were excited. And then 2 weeks later, we miscarry again. And so February, again, was not, that month was not easy. We were supposed to have a baby, and then we were excited about having another, and then lost that baby again. And we continue to try. I'm very heartbroken. I'm very sad. I'm very, we're in ministry, and I start to be able to resent God. I stop being able to go to church very often, but feeling really guilty about it. I would have to come in after worship because the songs they would sing, I didn't believe them. And then just going home and just crying.
One thing that I'm really grateful that God did in the midst of it is we got to a point where we genuinely began to believe that it was very likely or very possible that Raleigh would be our only child. And we, through a lot of prayer and I think diligence and patience and pushing into God and His Spirit and searching Scripture and having lots of long, hard, honest conversations, we just started to realize how broken some of our theology was, and we were upset with God for not coming through on a promise that He never made us. God never promised to give us kids.
Yeah.
He never promised us comfort. He never promised us security. He never promised us health. He never promised us any of those things. He promised to be with us in all of those things. And one of the things that I'm most proud about for Kayla is I felt like she got to a place of strength and a place of healing, or at least on the road to healing, before we ever got another baby. And I think that that's really important, because if you're living in what we were going through and you're just hoping for that baby to heal you and then that baby never comes, if you're just waiting for the baby, I finally got pregnant, to be the bow on your story and call that God's faithfulness, that's not God's faithfulness. His faithfulness is His character. His faithfulness isn't whether or not He does or doesn't give you a child. So I think that that's a really important, lesson that we learned, that He's good even when circumstances are not, and that leaning into Him is really important, not just when it goes your way, but when it doesn't and when it's really, really difficult.
Yeah. So then we start actually talking about adoption. We start planning. We reach out to a couple adoption agencies, and we're going to go to the orientations. We have it all scheduled. And so we're waiting around for this orientation to happen, and it was going to be a couple months. And we end up signing up for the class, and about a week later, I took a pregnancy test, and it didn't immediately come back with anything. I leave it sitting on the counter, and go take a shower, and then I'm just casually walking back by it, and I look down, and I'm like, that looks like a line. And I try not to get too excited, and so I take another one, and then I take another one, and I'm just waiting there, and I'm just really anxious, and it's just the faintest second line. But I'd done this for 2 years. There was no second line ever. And one thing you learn when you're taking pregnancy tests over and over again is the faintest line means you are pregnant. It doesn't matter how faint it is, if it's there, you're pregnant. So
Haddon Crew McLaughlin was born on October 12th.
Yep.
2021.
2020.
October 12th, 2020, and yeah, it was great. He is a joy. He's the easiest, the sweetest, the kindest, the giggliest baby that you could ever want. He's already sleeping through the night. I know you're jealous, parents. He's awesome. He's a gift and a treasure.
If you've ever experienced loss, if you've ever experienced, whether it's miscarriage or the loss of a child, or maybe it's just the loss of a plan that you had that isn't going the way that you thought it would, and you're grieving that, I would just say grieve it. Feel it, mourn it, find people to surround yourself with who love you, who'll support you, and just remember that getting that thing isn't going to complete you, but surrendering your life to Jesus and to believing that He is for you and that He's with you is the real game changer.